Dear friends, welcome to this another class on unions in C programming language. This course is going to be slightly advanced course. So let's get started. As part of the agenda, I am going to cover these topics. We will talk about unions in C language, why they are needed, and we'll try to distinguish and differentiate between union and structure, followed by a practical example of union in Linux kernel. And then we will delve over a popular interview or a design question pertaining to union exclusively, followed by the memory layout of a union. And then one of the master classical, a very classical code to test your understanding of the union. So this is a very interesting piece of code that we can try to look into. And then we'll have a demo, right? So we'll do a demo where you will see a code where the code works differently for different input cases for a union. So we will see how to solve that problem. So first thing first, we will talk about unions in C. So when you talk about union, right, what is the real meaning of a union? Union is basically joining together of multiple things, right? So when you talk about union as a programming construct in C programming language, we have to understand that we want to join memory locations which are associated with multiple programming variables. So all members of the unions, they share the same memory location, so same storage in the memory. That is the first important thing to remember. Now, since there are a lot of programming variables, there are a lot of members of a union, right? So there are a lot of members of a union. Now, if they share the same storage space, there is a great possibility that one of the member will read it, another member will write it. If that is so, then we will have a problem. So another very important property of a union is that whatever we store in that memory location is valid for exactly one member of that union. If other members access that memory location, it's like a meaningless, it's like a garbage for them. So the member which is operating on that particular memory location, either reading and writing, it is meaningful only for that. Okay, so the most recent member who access that memory for read and write operation is the one it is valid, for rest it is invalid. So union in reality, when we see, right, it can hold data of different types and different sizes at different points in time. So union is a construct where we give a memory location and then multiple members associated with that object are going to access it at different point of times. Okay, so that's a union. There's a requirement in the design to have a union type of a construct, which I will cover pretty soon in the subsequent slides. Okay, so I think that's where there is a union. Why do we require a union? Because in many programming situations, we require to access the same memory location, but it has a different interpretation, different meaning. So C language does not have any other construct for it. We all know it's a structure is one of the construct, but in structure, every member is fixed. Their memory addresses are separate and it's fixed. But we don't have a construct in C where we want to refer to the same memory location and infer it as different data, right? So union is certainly required. You will see in some live kernel examples about it. So in terms of implementations now, right, when you talk about implementation, it is definitely similar to structure as a programming construct when you write a code associated with either a union or a structure, which means it's a collection for a given object. So object has a lot of members, so it's a collection. So both structure and union have a similar syntax in terms of the layout, okay, in terms of programming, but they are fundamentally different because in the structure, every member is basically a independent different piece of memory, whereas in union it is same piece of memory. Just to distinguish, there's a struct SAN foundry structure. There are two members, val and C. There's a union, SAN foundry union, and then you have a val and C. So each one of them has a data type short, char, short, char. So question for all of you. What will be the size of memory which is allocated for struct SFS and the union SFU in bytes, right? So any idea? You have to think for 2 minutes and try to come out with a correct answer. So what's the answer here? Let's talk about this particular structure. So what's the total memory allocated by the compiler for this particular structure? You will see that short is 2 bytes, character is 1 byte. So essentially what you see is 2 plus 1, 3 bytes. So if you see on the face of it, you require 3 bytes of memory to store these two members of this structure. Structure have a concept of padding also, right? I will be covering a padding in a great detail in one of the advanced slides on structure. Okay, so due to the properties of padding, the size of this structure allocated by the compiler will not be 3, it will be 4. Okay, so at this point it is important to know that the biggest member in terms of data size, so in this case the biggest member is val, because it is 2 bytes and this is 1 byte, right? So the structure gets aligned to the biggest member, which is the short here. So the size will be 4 for this guy. So the size of struct memory allocated for this struct SFS will be 4, right? It will be 4 here. What about union? Union, as I told you, they have a common storage. All members, they share the same storage because that's how they are designed for. So val require 2 bytes and character require 1 byte. So essentially you have 2 here and 1 here, right? But it's the same memory location. So the biggest wins. So the union size will be the size of the memory required for the biggest member of that particular union. So the short is 2 bytes. So what you see is 2 bytes, 2 bytes. So when you look into this, now you pretty much know what the correct answer is. The correct answer is 4, 2, right? So this is a very simple way for us to distinguish structure and union in terms of programming constructs, okay? In terms of accessibility, yeah, we do have a dot notation, we have a pointer notations for both of them. It looks same actually, okay? But fundamentally, the memory allocated is different. Now, when you talk about unions, right, I have seen lots and lots of users, they want to somehow figure out where do we use unions basically, right? In the real world, we have lots and lots of requirement to have a union kind of a construct. You can see that I have noted down so many of them. So you have a protocols or the hardware or the device drivers and then the products, revisions on the products and versioning on the products and the Linux kernel in general. Not only these, you will see, some applications also, they might be referring to the same piece of memory, for different purposes actually, okay? So let's take examples, right? Because I will jump into the kernel code pretty soon, but we need to understand some of these actually, okay? When you talk about protocols, right? Think about a protocol. So since this is the programming class on Advanced C, it is not about kernel actually, okay? So I am giving some extra abstract example actually. So most of us in this country, right, we know we have a 3G, we have a 4G and we have a 5G in terms of telecom technology, okay? Now this is very abstract, okay? Generally, most of the mobile device handsets, they are backward compatible, which means if you are buying a 5G handset, generally it is supposed to be compatible with 4G and 3G and maybe 2G handsets, right? Okay. Now suppose you are a person who is authoring, who is writing a protocol for this 2G, 3G, 4G and 5G. If you are writing a protocol, you are supposed to be a backward compatible. And suppose, you are a receiver, you are a handset, you have received one communication, you receive one packet, and packet is for say generation 3 like 3G or maybe for 4G, right? So you have to make some decisions. First is you have to figure out what that packet is. Protocols means generally a packet, okay? At a very high level, protocol is just full of rules and guidelines and then the packets, okay? So if you are supporting a 3G, then you have to understand, yeah, you have to deduce that it's a 3G. So whatever data you have received, you have mapped it into a memory area, and that memory area will be a 3G memory area, which means all the fields, the headers, the packet will correspond to a 3G data set. But suppose it's a 5G or a 2G, right? So you have to just figure out, oh yeah, this particular version, I'm supporting this protocol number 2, sorry, say, we have, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say 3G, 4G, 2G, 5G, all those things. So if it is 2, then this may be a data set. If it is 5, then this is a data set, right? So essentially what's happening is you might have declared one union. Okay, so you might have declared one union because you are supporting all the protocols, versions of the protocols, and that you know that at any point of time, only one protocol packet type is valid for that, okay? But you don't want to keep separate structures for each one of them. So you can still think about a structure of say 5, a structure which contains one more struct of 2G, one more struct of 3G and 4G and 5G, right? So you don't want to do that because it's a wastage of space. So what we do is we have a union, and then inside a union we have 5 structures, okay? So how do we do that? Let's try to do a small code walkthrough on this. It's a code walkthrough, does not mean I'm going to write all this code. I'm just going to lay out a structure for you so that it is easy for us to understand what I'm trying to convey here. It's not really a code, it is like a dummy where I can call it as, union for a telecom network. Telecom, let's talk about, say 2G. So we know 2G up to 5G dot C, right? I repeat, it's not a code. So I'm not going to write a code. I'm just going to give you a structure. So what we can define I'm a union. So we should ignore this hash include, but since it is a coding related C program, right? So I'm just writing it here. So you have a union, and you say union, right? So we say union, we say it's a telecom underscore UN, some name I'm giving is a union, and then it's a union. Now for the sake of simplicity, I will not delve much. I will say it's a union of structure. So we have a struct called 2G, right? So we have a declare struct 2G, and we'll have a variable called say version 2. This is version 2, right? Now similarly what we can do is we can easily have another structure called 3G, because that's a version 3, and other structure called 4G, and this is version 4, other structure called 5G, and then a version 5, right? So in future if we have 6G or something, we can add it, right? And that's how we evolve the software basically. So think about choice for you, right? So think about the choice. In this choice, yeah, I have not written the definitions for this because I told you this is not a class where I can write for everything, because this is just for understanding, okay? So you can see that you have a union. So whenever you have an object called a telecom network per packet that you receive, it can be a 2G, it can be a 3G or a 4G or a 5G, but it cannot be all of them at the same time. So why to waste memory for unnecessarily having structure? So best is to create a union for it, right? Okay. So I hope you got the idea. Don't worry about some syntaxes that we are typing in here, because it's a live type class that I have done. Let's come back into the class. Okay. So I am sure now you got an idea about the practical example of a union in terms of protocols. So the programmer's life or the system programmer's life is full of unions. Actually, you will see many places. Hardware also we have CPU registers. Some of you who have studied Intel architecture, you will see registers, EAX, EBX, ECX, some Intel registers, or AX, BX, EX, AH, AL, right? So a lot of halves are there, a lot of small components are there. Similarly, device drivers, yes, because we support devices of all types. We support a lot of variations of the devices, revision 1, revision 2, revision 3, revision 4. So in a nutshell, what you see is you will really see that products have revisions, products have versions. Many a times we end up requiring a choice, requiring a union kind of a construct from the programming language. So C has union for that. Okay. Similarly, in the Linux kernel, you will also see union actually. right? You will see a lot of unions. So let's not waste more time on this. We'll go back into the source code of the kernel and we'll look into the structure, which is BIOS registers. Okay. Now, when you talk about this, these are few examples actually. Okay, but we will just quickly have a code walkthrough in terms of union. Okay, so we'll have one example where I said BIOS register, right? So BIOS register actually. So let's go and figure out what the exact keyword. BIOS regs, sorry about that. BIOS regs. So look into this carefully, right? So we have registers, which is a union. So you have a structure called BIOS registers, which is a union. Now the register can be a 4-byte entity. So these are classical registers. These are the important classical registers for an Intel architecture any day. Okay, so what you see is you want to represent a structure for 4-byte registers. You have another structure which is just a breakup of those registers with 2 halves, lower half and the upper half, lower half and the upper half. Okay, so this is 2 bytes and 2 bytes for destination register, EDI. Okay, this is source register, and then you think about AX, and this is your AX register. So this is like 2 bytes. If you go further down in the sequence, you will see that we can still break it into a small bytes, because that is what it is. So each of these registers, which is 4 byte, became 2 byte, and now you have 1 byte, because you want to address each one of them in your programming. Okay. Having said that, you don't want to waste space for 3 structures, because at any one point of time you want to refer only one of them, right? So what is the choice? Make a union. The choice is straightforward, just to make a union of this entire stuff, right? Okay, so you will have a union which is going to represent all of your structures. So this is what it is. I hope you got an idea about usage of union in this case. Many a times the usage are fundamentally different also. This is a way in which we are kind of multiplexing. So we are saying that we have upper shim, and that shim points to the object of the type that we would want. Okay, so that's what is a union. Look into another very interesting one from the point of view of process management in the kernel, and this is amazingly beautiful union. It is a union, thread union, right? So it's a thread. So this is part of scheduler of the kernel. Every single thread, every single process, and every thread in a process will have a thread union, thread underscore union. Okay, so when you look into the thread underscore union, so it's pretty simple. It's basically a structure. So it's a union of a structure and union of a stack. So what you see is it's a structure. So a structure is the size thread info. Okay, and then you have entire stack for the thread size by size of long. So in the kernel, basically this is a very classical case where every process state is maintained in a thread info structure, as well as the kernel stack. Okay, this stack is a kernel stack, so there is no other choice. I repeat, this stack is a kernel stack. Generally, when we run a program, we have a process. Program has a process has user space, and process has kernel space. The moment a process switches from user space into kernel space, there is a kernel stack, and that's the stack we are talking about here. Okay, so this is an array. This stack is an array of this particular size elements. Okay, or at the same time we represent it as the very intricate details about a process, a thread in the kernel. So this maintains the state of the thread in the kernel actually. Okay, yeah, having said that, the class is more about only C programming. So we are giving you, I'm giving you, a choice, which is a very good choice to understand union. Entire thread or a stack. So this is like a multiplexing. So we use this memory area in the kernel to store the stack of a process in the kernel, as well as the kernel important thread important data in this actually, right? So again, we are kind of multiplexing. Depending on the use case, we can directly go and check them, right? So what you see in summary at this point of time is, you have a very good use cases for unions. Okay, if you still have doubts, you can always write some comments on my YouTube video in the comment section below. Okay, and I will try to give more details probably, or I will do one more exclusive video if needed. Okay, All right, so I think we got the idea about unions predominantly, from the perspective of protocols, hardware, kernel, and many places where would want to use it. Right. Let's move on. So I have seen a lot of students ask me in general, what about structure to union conversion, right? That's a very interesting thing because people want to know. Even I have seen top-notch interviews. I take some interviews for top 5 companies in the world, right? So you will see them some interesting questions. Can we modify a code which is written using structures and we can use union instead? So this is a very popular design question and even the interview question. Okay. The goal here is to understand how much a user is aware of, a candidate is aware of, the unions versus structure differences in real world, right? So the answer for this question is no. Most likely, do you want to modify something which is written using structures and then use unions instead? It is just not possible because the design requirements for your real world object and operations on the object will govern whether you want to use a structure or you want to use a union. You cannot say I want to retrofit union into a structure or a structure into a union. That's how it doesn't work. Okay. There may be situations it might work in some cases if the code was very badly designed. But in reality, the requirements for this and these are fundamentally different. Okay. So the answer is you cannot really modify a code. We are not supposed to modify a code because the operations on the objects, the members, all are different here. Okay. So the use case is fundamentally different. Right. So we cannot do that. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. So this is what we have already written. So union declaration is very similar to a structure in terms of the format and the style, right? But as I told you, they share the same memory location. So think about val and ch. So what is val here? Val is a value which takes 2 bytes. Remember, it's a short, so it takes 2 bytes. And ch is a char data type, it just takes 1 byte. So both are at the beginning of this memory location, lower address, and then they write here, and then they write here, right? Any one of them will be accessing this at one time. That's key to know. Okay. So the both ch and val will share the same memory area. Ch will use the first byte and val will use both the first and the second byte, as you know now. So we'll understand how things work by looking into this example. Remember, this is the classic masterpiece. So in the world of Sand Foundry, when I say a classic, it is really a very interesting piece of code because when you run this code, the outcomes can be significantly different for your environment or for different inputs. Okay. So a lot of learnings are associated with this particular code. Look into this. What you are seeing here is you have a union. We define an instance of a union. So we have a Sand Foundry union and then we define a u.val we wrote 258. So we are assigning a value to 58 and immediately after that the value is 1 for the another member which is ch. Any idea without running your code, without doing any further check, what would be the printed values? Okay, so you can pause the video for 2 minutes, really try to arrive at the answer. If you are really able to arrive at the answer, it will be really good. And if it matches with what you really wanted to see as a correct answer, it means you have a very good understanding of the union. Okay, so what are the answers? You have lots and lots of choices here actually. Okay, so what will be the correct output? So depending on what you have solved here, right, based on this input data, can we have this or this or this or this, right? So I may not be able to immediately answer this here for you, okay, but I repeat, in this exercise there is a possibility of multiple answers here. Okay, We will definitely do a demo of this code pretty soon now to understand, because union, as I told you, the use case was multiplexing one memory area with different types of object requirements. Okay, so different members basically. We are operating on it. So we will see how things work and what is the answer that we get. Okay, so before I jump into the lab for this, I'll be jumping into the lab pretty soon for this, right? Okay, I will just answer it for some of you who might be more tempted to know the answer. Since it is 258, 1 of the answers can be $257. Okay, so value at the end of this operation can be this. Another answer, some of you who have done this, can be this. Some of you are very intelligent and sharp. Sometimes you can say it depends on the machine architecture for this problem. Okay, so it purely depends on your understanding of the concept of union. Having said that, I have a code ready for this. It's a live code, but I've already coded it this time. We'll code it, we will run, and we'll arrive at some explanation for the answer. So I will run the code and I'll come back into this slide, because I'll give you a complete detailed memory level breakdown of this code to understand the answer, right? So we will do that. So we'll do a lab demo on this, and then we will talk about the memory level breakdown of this. Let's go into the lab now. So in the lab demo, we will look into the code on the union, right? So we'll talk about, let's take this code. So I think this was the code which I have written on the screen. So you have the value 258. Okay, so you have the value 258. ch, we are doing a printf. So let's run this code. I have compiled this here now. I will run the code. I repeat, before we forget, the original value was 258, and this is 1. Now I'm doing my a.out. When you do an a.out, you will see that somehow the value became 257, right? So the val is 257, the ch is still 1. Ch is 1 because that's fine, because that's the last guy which operated on this memory. So the last guy which operated on this object will always have a valid value. But if you are using the other variable to refer it here, right, it will get garbled. So some garbage was expected, but it is 257. Okay. If I change it a little bit more further, so let's change this code. Okay. Yeah, so we are changing this code now. We will say sf SandFoundry union.c, and then I will make it 257. So this is 257 now, right? It's a 257. This is 257. So we'll try to compile this code now, right? So I'll do a cc on this. So in the previous case it was 258. The output is 257. Now the case is we have 257. Okay. And then we'll compile this and we run the code, and it says 257 once again, right? So if they change the value from 258 to 257, it's still showing 257. And that's where the problem is, and that's where the lack of understanding of the problem is. I'm sorry, but if you really knew it, excellent, because you really have a sharp eye about union. But if you did not understand it, just come back into the class. I'm going into a scratch pad and I will give you the complete memory diagram associated with this transition that we are seeing right now. Okay, so let's go and try to look into the memory diagram for this particular transition that we are seeing in our output. Okay, so let's go into the scratch pad. Okay, we'll start here. So what is the summary? The summary here is we had a union and then we did a val. So we had a u.val equal to 258 originally. Okay, 258. This was the original value. When you say 258, any idea? It's a short data type, which means you require 2 bytes. So we look into this space. So this can be byte 0. So this will be a lower address. Let's say it's a lower address. Okay, it's a lower address. And then byte 0. So we call it byte 0 actually. Okay. as per our diagram. This is byte 0. So obviously this is your next higher address, and this is byte 1. So you have byte 0 and byte 1. Since these 2 bytes are going to store this value, let's quickly break it down. Once we break it down, we'll get some good data, right? So 258 can be written in terms of hexadecimal notation, right? So when you say hexadecimal notation, this is basically 102. You can use your calculator if you would want, or to see why 258 is 102. Or if you want me to type it, I can do it right away to get the data. Okay, so I'll convert it into the calculator based data. So we wanted 258, right? So let's put an output base is 16 for this stuff. My input is 258 and I'm going to get a 102. So you can see that it's a 102 in the output. So when you say 102, it is really on. So now it's 2 bytes of data. Okay, so you have 01 to be stored in 1 byte and 02 to be stored in another byte. Okay, now I am doing all of my lab exercises on an Intel architecture. Intel architecture is a little endian machine. Okay, in a little endian machine, the least significant byte goes into the least significant byte. This is least significant, this is most significant byte. There are 2 bytes. Okay, so the least significant byte goes into the lower address. So 02 will be stored here, 02, this value in a hexadecimal notation. Okay, and then 01 will go here. So that's the summary here, right? Okay, so this is very important for us to remember. Now this is a little endian, so this is how we are storing it in memory. Now the next operation we do is u dot ch equals to 1. Now ch is just a 1 byte of information. Remember, it's 1 byte, and this is the beginning of your union area. So he will simply go ahead and write this value 1 here. So this value 2, which was here, will become now 1. So what you see at the end of the day is that 2 became 1. Okay, so now we have to, suppose I do a printf. What we did a printf of printf. Okay, ignore the syntax for the time being. So u dot val equal to say %d. I think that's what we did. We did a printf on u dot val. Now what is the u dot val? U dot val is basically a breakup of these two. So we have to join this back. So earlier it was 102. Now 01 went to the lower area, and then 01 went to the higher memory, and 02 went to the lower area, right? So essentially what you are seeing here is that u dot val, it became, after modification, 01 is here and 01 here. So ultimately it is basically a hexadecimal notation, 101. So you can think like 102 is 258. So obviously 101, which is just one value less, is nothing but 257. You can still use your calculator to find out this value, right? So I think this is the crux, this is summary. We need to understand behind the scenes how things are working, right? So if you think about another situation where what I did was, I just basically, had the value 257 here in another output, right? So if it is 257, internal representation of 257 is 101 only. So original value became 1 only here, right? And when we did a u dot ch equal to 1, we are kind of overwriting this with the same value, and then you will get back the same value. So in the second printf, when we did second modification in our source code lab, you will see the value as 257. Absolutely there was no change, right? There was absolutely no change. Now things are very interesting here, okay, because I'm executing this code in a little endian machine, all our Intel architecture. But if you're coming from a different world, right, you might have come from say PowerPC architecture, right? In a PowerPC architecture, things are different. So the endianness of the machine also plays a key role in some of these manipulations, okay? So when you talk about 258, this is 102, 0102, but PowerPC architecture or big endian machines. Big endian machines have a different, take on this. In big endian machine, the most significant byte goes into the lower address. So 01 goes here, and then this is the least significant byte, it just goes here. So this is a big endian machine, right? Now what you did here in the next step, you said u dot ch equal to 1. So ch is anyway here, so we are writing this with 1, which means absolutely no change. So when you display this value back, when you reconstruct it back on a big endian machine, it is same as 102, and the answer is 258. Okay, so we have to keep our eyes and ears open to really understand what we want to convey in this entire stuff, right? So when you come back into this original masterpiece, this masterpiece has a lot of contenders. So when you run this code, somebody will say yes, it is 257. Somebody says no, it is same. And the funny thing is, when you see it is same, then you will assume why there is no garbage, why it is printing the same value, right? But remember, it is not printing the same value, it is printing the same value just out of the luck. Luck means 258. Instead of 258, if it is a very large number, you may not see that luck. Okay, but for this data on a big endian, this is the answer. For this data on a little endian, this is the answer. So what it really means is that it depends on the machine architecture sometimes. Okay, so with this, I hope I try to give you more detail and internals little bit about union, and thank you very much for being part of this particular tutorial class till the end, and I will see you in the next class. Thank you. Thanks for watching the video. We have put important links in the description and the comment section below. If you really enjoyed our video, please press the like button below. We plan to release one video per week. So go ahead and subscribe to SAN Foundry by pressing the subscribe button below and turning on the notification bell.